Right, good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. Can we make a start, please? It is just on 2 o'clock. I've got a couple of opening remarks to make, and the first one is in terms of announcements. I would like to welcome members of the public to this meeting of the Fire Authority. You are most welcome, and I hope that you will find the meeting of interest. The Fire Authority supports the principle of transparency and encourages filming and recording and taking photographs at its meetings that are open to the public. The members are advised that this meeting may therefore be filmed, recorded and photographed. I think it might be just appropriate, just for a couple of words on what's been happening over the last couple of weeks, which affected us, and in terms of the industrial action. The recent industrial action over firefighters' pensions has thankfully passed without incident. It proved to be a measure of the mutual trust and understanding between the SMT and firefighters that has developed over recent years. So the dispute is obviously a national one and not one between this authority and its employees. However, I recognised its importance, and to that end I went to the Huntingdon station to meet with those on the picket line. My sincere hope is that the dispute can be resolved as quickly as possible. On a more cheerful note, I'd like to say that I went to the Parkside handover that Councillor Goodwin and I attended. It was a great occasion at the end of August, and congratulations to all concerned with the project. We are now the proud owners of what I believe to be one of the most modern and purpose-built fire stations in the country. My final remark really is about supporting firefighters' charity events. Again, Janet Goodwin and myself, along with Councillor Rylance, went to Peterborough to support the firefighters in their engine pull through the city centre. I have to say I didn't actually take part myself, much to everybody's relief. Otherwise there'd have been a heart attack case. But their efforts were greatly rewarded, and donations of over £800 were raised for charities. Other charity events have taken place across the authority, and whenever possible, I hope members will support these endeavours at all times. Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to the agenda, and the first item is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Sales and Councillor Giles. Are there any other apologies? No? Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of June. These have been circulated. Is it your agreement that I sign them as a correct record? Great. Chairman's announcements have been done. Declarations of interest. Item 4. Anybody any interest to declare?
I have, Chairman. Item 13, the Policy Committee minutes of the 19th of September. I am a trustee of Cambridgeshire Acre, so if a discussion takes place on the Community Champions programme, I shall have to leave the room. If it doesn't take place, then that will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other declarations? No? In that case, we move on to decisions. Item 5 is the first one, and that's the amalgamation of Swaffham and Belwell fire stations. I would ask Chris Strickland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I think I won't go line by line through the paper, but I think paragraph 4.5 will just remind members of where we are with this. Back in February, we gained your agreement to move ahead with the consultation process to gauge local views on whether there was an appetite for closing Swaffham Fire Station and moving the crew, amalgamating with the Belmont. We've done that consultation, and obviously this is the outcome. We did try quite hard to consult with members of the public in the local area, and indeed members of the public across the authority, but unfortunately the response we got was fairly limited. We only got just over 150 responses to the consultation. That said, the consultation responses were very clear, overwhelmingly in favour of the proposed merger of the two crews to the new site. During the process of the consultation, we were approached by a member of the public who lives quite close to Swaffham Fire Station, and they had been around the local village and gained what would be a petition asking people to say whether they were in favour or otherwise of the amalgamation. Of the responses that they got, they were all not in favour, all against. But again, 127 people, very, very small number of people in the village were against it. So I guess my advice to members would be that the consultation in itself doesn't give us a fully representative view of the local community in terms of whether they do or don't sign up to proposals. The main consultation, which had a lot of information in it, and by the way, we did hold surgeries in the local community. We spoke to the parish council, explained fully the proposals. We did get a significant majority in favour of the proposal. So I guess the recommendation that we're making in the paper today is that we move forward with the closure of Swaffham and the transfer of the crew that are at Swaffham to the Burwell site once we have the new building in Burwell up and running. So we wouldn't anticipate that happening probably until midway to late next year.
Thank you, Chris. Members? Councillor Beach.
I was just going to ask you on the petition, I think the segue is 120 signatures. I appreciate probably the whole run of things, that's not a huge number, but I should think it would be quite a significant number in the Swaffham.
It was 6.3% of the population of both the Swaffham, Burwell, Swaffham Park. So about 6%, very, very small. I think it is the nature of consultations. It's very difficult to get people to actually consult with us unless they're directly affected by the proposals. The problem we did have with the, and we did spend some time, the local station commander spent some time with the lady who was running the petition. I spoke to her as well, trying to address some of the concerns that she had. As we explained to her, the big problem we have in that area is the small size of the population. So we're not talking a few years, we're talking 20, 30 years. We've been struggling to crew the station, and it's just getting worse. And at some point it will close itself. So unfortunately we could keep the fire station open, but we won't be able to crew the appliance at some point. So as we tried to explain, it would be a better, in our view, to move the crew and amalgamate them with Burwell, so we could actually get a better response, albeit it's further away from the location.
I think, Chairman, I think it's worth adding that we always struggle to get interest in the consultations for one reason or another. That's why we went to the trouble of getting the post office, using the post office to post the consultation documents through the door of every premise in Bottersham, the Burwell and the Swaffham, to try and get a better response. But as you can see from the paper, we still.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chairman. The question I was going to ask is, should this get approved, what will happen to the fire station in Swaffham? Are there plans to keep it for future use if it's needed in the future, or sold, or what plans have you in mind?
We've had a piece of work done on that, and we were looking at the potential to develop it, the potential to sell it as it is, or the potential to do it up and sell it. And actually what came back was to sell it. In terms of getting the best return on the investment would be just to sell the site.
And presumably the monies that would then go into the fire authority?
Yes.
Yeah.
we've not moved too far on that, councillor, because one doesn't want to be seen to be preempting the decision that the authority might make. If you do too much work in that arena, people assume it's a done decision, which it isn't, and we didn't want to betray that.
I'm just thinking of the future with the amount of house building the country is going to be having over the next 18 years in South Cambridgeshire's district council's proposals at the moment. But if Swaffham was to get a lot of development there may well be a need for a fire station again in maybe 10 years' time. Couldn't the building be used for storage of an old appliance, or an appliance that's not used very often, or something?
We did actually look at the spatial strategy for the area, and the potential for house building in the Swaffham area over the next few years is very, very minimal. There's a significant amount of building that's going to be going on in the Burwell area, but not in Swaffham. And we would need to significantly, well, massively increase the population to give us any chance of being able to create. I mean, as we said in the paper, we've currently got 4. We have managed to find 1 more person, so that's 5. So we're around about 50% of what we need for the minimum criteria. So we would need a significant increase in population. And the other issue that arises from it, that actually in that area, we don't need 2 fire stations. We don't get the calls. Calls are actually reducing in number, they're not increasing. And the number of calls we get in that area is quite small. So it's difficult to see how we would want or need a fire station in the future in that area.
Thank you.
Councillor Shannons.
Thank you. 2 points, if I may. I believe I heard you say that you consulted with the parish council, and I'd be interested in their views. And secondly, is there any prospect of joint operation of the new site with other elements of the county council or other partners to the Making Asset Counts exercise?
I could probably allow Matthew to answer on the first one. But yes, I went and sat with the parish council in Swaffham, and inevitably, there is some concern about losing the fire station. But I would say that at the end of the conversation, I think there was an understanding of the difficulties that we face in trying to maintain the crew in the area. And I think there was a degree of reassurance that the parish council felt that we weren't just simply going to discard the crew, because they're a really valuable asset for us. They're firefighters, very difficult to come by. So the fact that we would then transfer those people into the site at Burwell was quite a reassurance for them. And also a reassurance that we would probably be able to turn the vehicle out much more often than we currently can on Burwell site. Burwell doesn't give the 100% permanence. It's good, but it will improve that.
In terms of making assets count, I'd like to think this scheme itself is a success. We've actually done land swap deal with the county council. At least they're on highways and depot, I believe. And what we've done, actually, our current station is not deemed to be fit for purpose anymore. It doesn't have a training facility at all, so it's a smaller piece of land. The county are taking that off our hands because it's adjacent to a piece of land that's got development potential. And then in return, we get a much larger piece of land where you can see we're putting in a nice, hopefully new station that is fit for purpose with the training facility on as well. And that's all being done in terms of the swap arrangements. And effectively what's happening is, whilst we develop, we're allowed to stay in our old station whilst we develop on there. So that's effectively how it's going to work.
The one thing to add as well, Councillor Shelley, was the building itself, and later on in the documentation also there is some hints that the community doesn't use our facilities as much as we might like them to, but nevertheless the facility will be there.
But there's no possibility of a health clinic coming in on Wednesday afternoon, things like that.
Well, absolutely, we'd be
We're open to it, and I guess there's always a limitation in terms of the footprint of the site. So the majority of the site is set up for operational use. So the bit that we set aside for community use, if it's suitable for that sort of thing, we can make an arrangement that's attractive to both sides, and there's no reason why we wouldn't do that.
We are, Councillor, I think because of Matt, we are just about starting to get some interest in our fire stations now, and perhaps other agencies asking if we can do things. We've got a project going on in Wisbech about parts of Fenland and parts of police perhaps using the station as well. So it's beginning to, the snowball's beginning to run, but it's not rolling very fast yet.
We also share land in some, as well in some locations.
Councillor Butcher.
And just a quick question, the 5 employees at Swaffham, are they within 5 minutes of Burwell?
The 5 employees are not within 5 minutes, all of them, they're within London. What we did in one of our other fire stations where we had problems with crewing, we extended the turnout time to 7 minutes, and they're all within 7 minutes. And we felt that the additional 2 minutes would be worth allowing for to get the extra availability that we would like.
Are they available days and evenings, or just evenings and weekends? Is it?
There's a variety of availability, but certainly there's some day cover that we'll be able to add into. In Burwell, most of our retainment stations, on-call stations as we call them now, are available in the evenings and at night. Day cover is where we do struggle, and there is an element of day cover that we'll get from that.
So that will improve the Burwell situation?
We're anticipating there will be an improvement, yeah.
But if I can cancel it improves the general situation, because of course it's not just about Burwell availability during the day, because Swaffham's not available during the day either, so it's a general increase in availability, not just in the Burwell facility.
Anybody else like to contribute? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Can I ask if you ask the 5 members of staff, will they happy to move Burwell? I mean, have they given you any idea
Certainly,
of
yes.
their feelings?
Right from the start of the process we've had discussions with our staff, kept them up to date with what we're doing, and had conversations about what they would and wouldn't do. The conversations around they're moving to the new location have been had, and all 5 we've done timed runs from their habitats to make sure that they're within a reasonable amount of time. And yes,
Any other members like to contribute?
The
Councillor.
only thing I would say, I've looked at the plans, I think it looks really nice. With the training facility as well, which new building training facility, it looks to me to be a good option here.
If there are no other contributions, Councillor Chapman.
Well, I'd just like to say, I think the last speaker made quite a good point. That I mean, obviously, people of Swaffham, and I think 6.3% is quite a significant number of residents. It's a significant minority, and you can understand the concerns that they may be voicing about the uncertainty of losing their fire station. But I think that the last speaker, the point being made is quite clearly later on in the agenda. We've lost an opportunity here to put these 2 items back to back. Later on in the agenda, we've got a much improved new fire station at Burwell, which is actually the Swaffham and Burwell fire station, and we should probably look at, when we get to that, naming it as such, and recognising the fact that this is a new fire station for Swaffham and Burwell.
Point taken. Any other contributions? In that case, can I have a proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Goodwin, seconder. Councillor Butcher, all those in favour? Anybody against? That's carried unanimously.
Can I just ask, Mr. Chairman, will the parish council be told the decision and spoken to and just explain what's going to happen? Yeah, thank you.
Right, let's move on please to item 6, Integrated Risk Management Plan 2010-15. Neil Newman, please.
The Integrated Risk Management Plan, obviously the purpose is to seek your agreement for the refreshed draft Integrated Risk Management Plan. This has already been through the Policy Committee. The recommendation is that you accept the content of this proposed plan. I think there's only a couple of items I need to bring your attention to. The consultation period obviously has been completed. Went through a 12-week consultation period. That consisted of a series of briefings across the service to our own staff. We also wrote to all our partners to make sure they were aware of it so they could comment if they wished. And it was also put on our website for a public consultation. It was extremely limited response. More response for it internally, but virtually no response from the public. I think there was two responses actually in total. So I think it just reflects on what was said earlier when Chris was talking. I think from my perspective, if I point you to the significant changes in this IRMP, it's a fairly good news story. If you read the actual plan itself, it talks about our achievements over the last period of time, and you can see that we're definitely moving in the right direction with significant improvements in nearly every area that we're monitoring. I think the significant changes, the biggest one will be in item 6.4 of the paper, the 2 bullet points there, where we're proposing a change to separate out the urban and the rural areas, primarily because of the over the years, our average response time of 9 minutes for the first pump and 13 minutes for the second pump. We've noticed that we have never ever achieved those times in our rural areas with the on-call service. We only achieved the 9 minutes, or we have only achieved the 9-minute response time in the urban areas with the whole-time appliances. So we thought it would be more prudent to separate out the two and create a separation between the urban response time and the rural response time. And that's what the paper is depicting. The other change is just in the way we record in the on-call availability. Because we now know exactly who is supposed to be on call at any time of the day or night, our previous availability was always done on a prediction. Now it's far more accurate, and so what you're seeing in the paper is that a more accurate depiction of our on-call availability, and so we've only just started measuring it, so we've got no comparative data from previous years, so we were effectively starting again. But needless to say, our availability is about 82%, which puts us in a good position as far as the national picture is concerned, where the average is about 70 to 72% availability of on-call. We've certainly bucked the trend with regards to our on-call service. It's still nowhere near where we would like it to be, but at least we feel that we've got a far more accurate picture now. So hopefully you'll get some of that along. I think the rest of it speaks for itself. Most of the paper is very similar to where it's been in the past. The targets are very similar. So over to yourselves. Any questions?
Thank you, Neil. Open to members. Councillor Reynolds.
With regard to arson fires, you don't seem to have any figures on incidents of grass and stack fires throughout the, well in my case, the Fendon area, which seems to be very high this year. Is there anything more that you can do through education or anything to try and get that number down?
I don't know if Rick wants to actually come in then.
Excuse me. No, the data you have in front of you is kind of a consolidated data which takes care of all those types of fires. They're all built up into that figure under deliberate fires. We can break that further down to the specific areas that you're talking about. I don't have that data with me, but happy to share it. We have seen a continual reduction in the types of fires we're talking about in terms of straw stack fires. And we work closely now with the Cambridgeshire Constabulary to work on offenders who may be causing those fires in a deliberate nature. In relation to accidental fires that happen in the open, and Councillor Whiston and I were having a conversation just earlier, there's more we need to do there in terms of working with the communities. So we now have the community champions, which are volunteers that are out in the area. Part of their remit is to go around and try and educate people around the dangers of playing with fire and that type of thing. So there's more to be done, but we're heading in the right direction.
I was thinking more of education in schools because I personally noticed a large rise during the summer holidays of field fires, grass fires. And I think more needs to be done. We can get through to the schools to give them a bit more education before they break up.
Well, we do have a programme of visits there that enter into schools at certain points, but certainly happy to discuss any plans that the sports team have.
Councillor Bible.
Just a quick one there. Just wanted to have you got any definition for an urban and rural area in relation to the targets? It might sound quite simplistic saying urban area, but where do you define that urban area as?
What we're doing, what we're using for the urban area will be our whole-time and day cruise stations. So it will be the station grounds that pertain to the 4 5-watch stations and the 3 day cruise stations, where we know they're our most significant risks. So they'll be some of our urban areas, and the rural will be the on-call stations.
I take your point that actually the classifying them as urban and rural may not actually be the right classification.
Yeah,
because what we're actually talking about is service delivery from whole time and day related stations versus service delivery on the on-call stations, and being more transparent about what's happening on those on-call stations. That's really the issue, because otherwise they get sort of swamped by the number of calls they have in whole time areas, and you could be deluded into thinking that service in the rural areas served by the on-call stations is broadly the same as it is in the urban areas. And of course that's not right. So what we're trying to be here is far more transparent. But it's not necessarily about urban and rural, you're quite right. It's actually about service delivery out of different types of shift systems. So we could think about how we clarify.
We could,
maybe define a definition or something,
sure.
Maybe a little bit clearer.
We could give it some thought, but my only concern about, I don't want to go down the route of calling it whole time or calling it on call, because obviously the whole time stations will go to the on-call areas, but sometimes they'll go there as the first pump purely because of availability issues, and so it could confuse it. So it needs to be actual station grounds, but we could look at an alternative to that.
I think perhaps if we just describe, say what we mean when we say it.
Yeah, just a more of a definition here.
Councillor Shannon.
A number of points, if I may. Given that most people only read the summary, I wonder if it would be helpful to have the from to figures under paragraph 5.2 and 5.3.
Is this on the paper? Or is
Yes, it's on the public paper. Yes. I know many of those numbers later on in the detail document. Second point, under paragraph 2.2 of the more detailed paper, it says put in place arrangements to make information available to the public about civil protection matters. And I have to say, as a member of the public, I've never been conscious of that, and I would like to have that explored at some stage. In the graphs on 3.4, I'm not clear what the job name is. I'm assuming that these are incidents under our purview, but it would be helpful if it said so. And I didn't understand, I was curious as to why we didn't go any further in the last quarter of 2011, because that seems quite a long time ago now. Two more small points. On page 30, we're talking about what we need to do and why, and we're talking about how we would achieve things specified above. Cross-border arrangements with neighbouring services will be reviewed as necessary. I was just wondering what the frequency of that is, and whether you're comfortable with that frequency. And a final really serious point, page 39, while there are migrant workers from many parts of the world, A10 migrants. What is an A10 migrant?
Where are you reading from?
Page 39, bottom panel.
The accession states potentially
Sorry, say again.
the accession states.
Right.
It's the 10 countries. It was the 8, and I think the 2 Bulgaria and Romania.
Yeah.
The 9 and 10.
I can learn things even at my age, thank you. That might help if that were,
Yeah,
if the shorthand was
we
removed.
can,
that's
we
fine.
can outline that.
I think we'll take on board all those comments, and we can amend the document as we go. There was one there you said about frequency.
Cross-border arrangements.
Cross-border arrangements, yeah, we do review those on an annual basis, but we are in the process of looking at those slightly more than we have in the past. In the past, we've had not enough arrangements. We think that we're actually spending more time going into, specifically we're going into Norfolk more frequently than we have in the past. And we're looking to possibly start charging for our service. Yeah.
On the data council, there is a difference for us between the data that DCLG accepted, validated, verified, which is 2011. We do have other data, and we can actually, of course, we can show it, but we have to also clearly know that it's not validated yet, although it really changes.
Those DCLG people are tellers, aren't they?
They're just slow.
Councillor Natzinger.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I would like to thank Neil very much for taking some time yesterday to explain the rationale behind the changes in turnout times, which I was concerned about when I came to the policy committee, but I'm now happy, so thank you very much for bothering with that. I think it's very important in this document, and it's an excellent document with lots of good news stories, which is great to see. In the figures, in the main body of it, they're very usefully set out with what our incident rate was 5 years ago and our incident rate now, and comparing that with national. And I think that the comparison with the national figures is really useful and informative, actually, because there are some of those figures where we are, there aren't very many of them where we're significantly better than national, but there are some where we are definitely better than national, and there are a few where, in spite of what look like really impressive reductions, we are still above national in terms of the number of incidents in the population. Because I think traffic accidents is an obvious one, but I think there are a couple of others. And I think that as an authority it's important that we're aware of which ones those are, and those should be priorities. And the other thing I wanted to say was that I very much welcome that the top prevention activity is to reduce the number of accidental domestic fires, because those are obviously, other than traffic accidents, that's the key health risk one. And at the policy committee we discussed what the key risk groups are and how you're changing your targeting. You're making your community safety work much more targeted, and I think that's a very useful and important piece of work. I partly wanted to tell the rest of the fire authority that I think that the targeting of that community safety work on the key at-risk groups is very important. I think that needs to be a key priority. So, but otherwise, excellent. Thank you very much.
No, I'm glad we recognise that we are targeting those people most at risk. We're a relatively small authority. We have, not limited resources, and I've often been heard saying before that doing community safety work where there is no risk is good PR, but it's not actually assisting you doing anything else. We don't have the resources to do good PR, the PR section.
As you said as well, Chair, I think we've actually moved away from the way we were targeting. A number of years ago we were trying to blanket, and that clearly is very resource intensive and actually not all that productive. Now, particularly through the work that Rick's done in community safety, we are much better at targeting. We work much more holistically as a service to integrate how we focus our resources. So we don't just send community safety out, we talk to our operational side, we talk to our fire protection side, and make sure that when we're targeting the areas where there is the most risk, and we're using the limited resources that we have as wisely as we can. I think the issue for us as a service is though we do have limited resources, so there's a finite amount that we can actually do with those resources.
How does that tally with your obligation under statutory legislation to, and then the point I made earlier, put in place arrangements to make information available to the public?
we put in place arrangements to make the information available, and people can access through our website. They can contact us to get information, but we don't necessarily target everybody to proactively in terms of providing information. So there's a staged process, and it's something that we have written down into our policies. So we target those most at risk with the most resource. People who are least at risk, we make available information for them to access if they need it.
I've got Councillor Lyons and Councillor Goodwin, but before then, Rick, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just picking up on the point that Councillor Nestingham made, we do try really hard to target most at risk, and Chris is absolutely right in terms of those limited resources. The answer to that for us, though, is about building partnerships with other agencies. We know the people that are most at risk from fire are also known to other agencies, adult social care and people like that, and that's the relationship and the partnership that we've really got to continue to work to build, especially with the pressures that adult social care find themselves at the moment. So support from yourselves as members in terms of helping us to build those links and continue those links is really helpful.
Councillor Lyons.
Yes, could I ask the officers, basically it's on page 9, it is 3.22, and it's about the 54% of incidents are false alarms, which include malicious call, good intent calls. My point about this is the automatic fire alarm calls. Am I presuming that these are from businesses, factories and offices out of hours? And should those places be accountable if their systems haven't been checked on a regular basis?
Can I ask Rick Hilton to respond to that?
Yes, predominantly those automatic fire alarms are from those type of premises. When the data was refreshed, that was of course before the authority took the decision to hold some of those businesses far more accountable by placing responsibility directly at them and not attending them in the first place. So those some of those figures in terms of just responses to automatic fire alarms where they've just called us because that's their default position, we've taken action on that through the authority, and we no longer attend those type of premises. If there's a known fire, then of course we will attend. But too often, certainly with the population in terms of size of Cambridgeshire, the number of automatic fire alarms that we have, we're almost a product of our own success in that we have a number of businesses and premises now that are very well equipped in terms of automatic fire alarms. When they were going off, we were getting an automatic response to attend. We worked hard to try and drive that down, but fundamentally the response to manage your fire alarm is that of the business owner and the occupier. We've placed that back at the point of those responsible people, and we no longer attend those. So some of those figures will reduce, and more importantly, we're putting responsibility back to where it belongs and using our resources where the best needs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you, Chair. A little earlier on you talked about communication, and as one of the 3 critical services to the public, I think communication with the public, trying to find always new ways of getting messages out to them, whether it's on our team or whatever method, I think is absolutely valuable. And I think the other people that you have to always consider when you're trying to communicate is members, not only members of the authority, but all members of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I think you have to. Sometimes, I get information through and it'll say a bin fire here or a car burnt out there, and I think it give us as much information as you can about that when you're communicating it, because I might want to go and have a look where that car's been burnt out. Does anything need to be done? So I think you should always. ECOPS is, we've talked about this before, ECOPS is absolutely brilliant and is improving all the time. And from an IT point of view, I think you should always try to be sourcing new ways of communicating with members and the public.
Thank you. Anybody else like to contribute? Sorry.
Just to reiterate something that's already been said. It's a pleasure to read these reports. I read reports from other places and they're not a pleasure to read. So I'd just like to thank whoever it is that put this together. It's clear, it's concise, it contains the information I need, and it's grammatical. dramatic.
Councillor Downs will be telling.
Yes, it is.
Can I make
Okay.
a comment on that, please, Chairman?
Yes.
It's just, I accept that information, really, it's good to hear that, to be fair, because this paper, it's been written by, it was virtually written by committee originally, so it's quite nice because it's always difficult when you've got different people inputting into a paper. Most important thing with this is that it doesn't sit on the shelf, and that we actually now have a quarterly meeting where we go through the performance figures, so hopefully we should be up to date all the time with this, and we can respond where we need to more appropriately than we have in the past. So I take your comments on board, accept those, that's really useful, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. We have been trying to make it an easy to read. I had the Chief actually sent me Norfolk's IRMP. I'm not going to criticise Norfolk's IRMP, but it was 140 pages and I didn't manage to get to the end, to be perfectly frank. Or do you think you have a chance with this?
It's Norfolk.
Right, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask for some clarification on something that was spoken about a bit earlier when we've discussed it. Of the 9,200 incidents each year, and I know we said that, or Rick, we were talking about when you were called to fires that were supposed to be a fire. So that would be included in the 54% that was a false alarm. Would that be correct?
If we're called to a fire, when we get there, it's not fire, or it's controlled burning, it's an automatic fire alarm that's gone off, and then those are all included in our statistics. It's only when there's an actual fire and a secondary fire, which is, we use the term secondary for fires that generally don't have insurance value, so things like fields, bins, or a primary fire which will have some form of insurance value. So if it's one of those, it's recorded as a fire. If not, it will be a false alarm.
Okay. And where in the figures would, for instance, if you were called to an incident that had been an incident, but when you got there you didn't need to take any further action?
That'd still be recorded as a fire, but where no action was taken.
If it was a fire,
we would record it like that.
it might be recorded as a fire or a late call, but it would still be recorded as a fire.
Right, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? In which case, can we turn to the recommendation, please, which we ask to accept the content of the refreshed draft. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 7, revision of statement of delegated responsibilities. I'll ask Jeff Taylor to take us through this, please.
So
Perhaps Jeff in some detail where changes are to be
Yes,
made.
it's the pink paper, as you can see, and the main reason for updating it was because on page 15, under my delegation as monitoring officer, the legislation was way out of date. So we've taken the opportunity of actually updating that and then asked the directors to double check on their own responsibilities in here and see whether any of them need switching around or changing. So if you go to page 9, number 25, that's now gone into Matthew's delegation, and that came from Neil, because he's actually doing that now. Number 10, 6 came from Matthew, it has gone into Chrissy's responsibilities. 7 also has come from Matthew and gone into Chrissy's responsibilities. Over the page to 11, 4 is now shared with Matthew, that's Neil's responsibilities, and 5 also came from Matthew. Then go further to the end, Matthew also took the opportunity on page 17 to update the limits and delegated powers and financial limits to reflect, I think, the true sort of situation that happens nowadays. So hopefully, we're quite straightforward. All the changes are actually shown as track changes. There's nothing else that's happened that I've not pointed out to you. So hopefully you will accept those. Happy to try and answer any questions you have. Get one of the directors to put this one.
Any comments, members?
Can I just
Councillor Smith.
Can Can I just put in, basically, should more of it be sort of in collaboration with yourself as the chairman?
Lots of decisions being made every day under the delegation scheme. If we have to consult with the chairman too often,
Oh, that's all right. Keep it
that
busy.
will delay things tremendously. Obviously, if there's any political sensitivity, we're expecting our officers to go and speak to the chairman on wider. But on that basis, hopefully you'll accept that we've really got to get on and make a lot of decisions during the day. We can't do it too often. Obviously, on important things, yes. Politically sensitive things,
Who
yes.
decides how it's politically sensitive?
Officers and his consultation with me. Or if the chairman, we'll have discussions with the chairman. You know. It's worked so far, hopefully, I think.
I'm just feeling, you know, I just sort of thought it should be sort of in more collaboration with the chairman. So. I don't know how
Chairman.
everybody else feels.
Well, I'm broadly content, but I think if it has got political sensitivity, then quite clearly it needs a political import. So somebody needs to decide. We need to decide that between us.
As the monitoring officer, I'm obviously very well aware about what has to come to members.
I can assure you.
And so the officers do discuss with me whether things need to go to members or not. So that's the way we actually do it.
I can assure you nothing gets past Mr. Taylor very easily.
I think much of this, there's a little bit of this which I think is about relationship. Just because we have a delegated authority up to a certain limit doesn't necessarily mean that every decision we make under that limit we'll take on our own. It often makes good sense to bring things to members and to get, for want of a better description, political cover in some respects for what you're doing, or off somewhere doing whatever they want without keeping members involved. So I actually think it's very rare that anything with any political sensitivity is not discussed with the chairman, with Jeff, and then brought to one of the committees of this authority. It doesn't really happen.
Look
I
at
can't
page
think
three.
of any.
Page 3, 1.2.1. We've got there, the Chief Fire Officer, another name, but it says, shall maintain close liaison with members representing the political groups in relation to any matter which, in their opinion, may be regarded as sensitive or contentious by any such group. So we've got that in there, and I'm always very conscious of that, advising the directors.
Okay. Councillor Chapman.
I think I was actually beaten to the door.
Who's that?
Yeah, I just want to, it's probably quite a sensitive issue that I'm going to raise now, but it's in relation to what you just said in relation to 1.21. I'm a relatively new member to the Fire Authority, and decisions that were made previously by the Fire Authority, decisions that are made and are irreversible, but the passage of information in relation to Mr. Stagg's retirement and coming back, I understand that that's been resolved. However, as a member of the Fire Authority, no information was passed to myself, and I'm not speaking out for any other members here, but that was quite a sensitive issue in light of the current climate. Why was no information passed to us? Because ultimately it's the Chief Fire Officer's responsibility. The subject of the matter was the Chief Fire Officer, and we won't pass that information.
The Appointments Committee at its meeting in February of this year actually approved that, and that was a group of politicians. So they actually made a decision to approve that re-engagement, and it's on the website.
Yeah, I understand that the decision was made. That sits comfortably with me, and I've got no involvement in that decision that was made. But ultimately, I was totally unaware that the Chief Fire Officer was on sabbatical, call it what you want, and no information was passed to me. So the first time I received any information was when I was watching Anglia News, and no information was passed to me. And I'm a member of the Fire Authority, and that wasn't passed to me. And ultimately, I could be asked to comment on that. I wasn't fully aware of information.
Councillor Ryan.
I was asked to comment on it, and I hadn't got a clue what was going on. I think, in light of the fact that the firemen were striking out pensions, I think somebody should have been able to foresee the public outcry that there was going to be about this, because somebody was going to pick up on it. Boy, were they going to jump on it, and they did. And I think we should have had some warning that this was going to happen.
Next time you retire, Chief.
Well, I would only say to the members opposite that we were in many respects, all in the same boat. And I don't think anybody could have foreseen a situation whereby we would be in the middle of a dispute at the same time as this was happening. So I think every effort was made at the time to inform members as quickly as possible. I understand where you're coming from, but there was no question of any secrecy over this. It was a question, it was really unforeseen circumstances. Now I don't think, if I talk to my colleagues in the communications department, who I think got the brunt of this, there were circumstances coming together which we would never have foreseen. Having said that, I would hope that we'll put measures in place to make sure that in future we have tighter safeguards and that members and staff in a similar situation will be kept fully informed.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Sorry. Councillor Butcher first.
I'd just like to make a comment on the situation. It was brought to my knowledge while I was out somewhere else and I didn't know anything about it. So I contacted Peter straight away. Peter emailed me the minutes through from the meeting in February where it was discussed and approved. And I was in the process of reading them when the press got in touch with myself, and my answer to the press was, I can't give you any comments because I don't know what I'm talking about until I've read through these papers. And I always think that's a good thing to do with the press. If the press contact you and you're not really sure of the whole thing, it's best, well, just do the same as I did. I'd put them on to somebody else and said, try somebody who knows, because I didn't know enough about it.
Councillor Chapman.
I mean, I'd like to come back to Councillor Smith's original comment. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong, the level of engagement in this with the between officers and members. I don't know really what previous iterations of this have been. Clearly there are some concerns about a specific incident, although that's, I think this moves a little bit away from the policy. I feel that I looked through this looking for the level of member engagement, and I couldn't really see a tremendous amount in there. Now maybe there should be, maybe there shouldn't be. I would like to see this document actually taken away from this meeting and looked at it again, reviewed by members, and then perhaps returning to a future meeting. Then we can be sure that we address some of the problems that the members around this table have raised.
Chairman, the reason there's not much reference to members in this is because it's the actual delegation scheme to officers. You wouldn't expect too much reference to members in it. But I can understand where you're coming from. But can I ask that you actually approve, particularly the changes to the legislation, because we need that in place now. We can't delay that because what you've got there has been operating for the past 20 years, that document. It hasn't been changed. We need to change the legislation because otherwise we're authorising people to do things under stuff that doesn't exist anymore.
Could I make a suggestion that we approve the alterations and perhaps take it back to the relevant committee for further discussion? I would see that as the policy committee. Would you all agree to that?
Can I make a comment? I'm happy to agree this today, although I'm slightly puzzled by something on page 3, which is that at 1.5 it says deleting authority. Which I don't know why you've done that. It then says authority, and if you take authority out, it says chairman of the fire. In any case. So I think that's probably just an error.
I think I took authority out and put it back in again.
Yeah.
So I think
I think you don't need to do that. But that's a tiny point.
Yeah.
I wondered whether, rather than coming for review to policy, overview and scrutiny, could have a look at
Or shall I say to the appropriate committee?
we can
We'll look at the scheme and send it to the...
Okay.
and I just wanted to follow up on the point that Simon made very briefly, which is to say that I think I don't think that's an issue with the scheme of delegations, but I do think it's an issue about communication with members of the fire authority, and I'm quite sure it's not a I'm quite sure it was an error rather than anybody's it was an oversight, and the oversight happened, in my view, because the membership of this fire authority has changed very significantly between February and now, and I think that everybody needs to be very aware of that. This is a very different fire authority from the one that was in February, and therefore we need to be informed of things. And I was very grateful to be informed of that, having yesterday having missed all the public PR. So I heard about it from the right people, but not at the right time. It would have been better to hear about it before it came up in the press.
Well, I think that's
So
been
I'm
a
sure
very,
that's
been a very useful discussion. So are we content that we proceed with the recommendation, but then refer it to overview and scrutiny and your paper for further consideration? Or the appropriate committee.
Chair the delegation.
Yeah? Everybody agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Unanimous? Thank you. The next item 8, is the appointment to committees and outside bodies. You should have in front of you a paper entitled Agenda Item Number 8, which Michelle had kindly produced for us, and we were asked to note the changes in bold and strike through. So, Michelle, would you just confirm those for us? The first one seems to be overview and scrutiny.
Yes, this change reflects the change in the membership of the Fire Authority. Councillor Chapman has joined the Fire Authority now to replace Councillor Dwyer. We've also we had a problem where Councillor Smith was on the Discipline Committee and Appeals Committee. You can't effectively be on both. One or the other.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
Because the appeals committee deals with appeals from the district, so you can't.
So that's our error. So we obviously rectified that. Councillor Peach has replaced Councillor Smith on that one. I've been informed that the review of non-operational support services doesn't exist anymore, but if I'm wrong, I apologise. And Chairman yourself, I think, asked to be put on the business development programme board, and I think that's all the changes.
Which one did you say, through Mr. Chairman, was finished? Because Ops Enhancement's finished, isn't it? Is that the one you was on about?
Review of non-operational support services under the programme.
That board has finished its work.
That's my understanding.
And the member champions, health and safety. Okay. Are all those in favour of those changes?
Can I make a clarification?
Yes.
Sorry, there are two mid-term substitute gaps, which are around the gaps, but which we can fill now if you like. So the Fire Authority Discipline Committee, you could put me down for.
Thank you.
And the Fire Authority Appeals Committee, you could put Mark down for.
Okay, so subject to those changes, everybody in favour? Yeah.
In favour, sorry.
Unanimous? Yeah. Good, thank you. The next one, item 9, dates of Fire Authority meetings 2014-15. I hope you all had the opportunity to diarise those meetings. The only, Matthew, where are we with December? We're still about December.
Yeah, absolutely. The Resources Committee in December, the latest information we're getting is that the final financial settlement for next year may not be, it's going to be in autumn. It's how you define autumn apparently. So that could well be after the 5th of December. So it's likely that we're going to have to put that committee back again by a couple of weeks. I reckon we'll obviously consult the account tax level we know.
Is this from DCLG by any chance?
Treasury, yeah.
Okay, so if you'll note those dates please, and we'll now move to item 10, the first of the information items, which is the public consultation and redesignated rescue vehicle crew Huntingdon, pink paper. Rick, you're going to speak to this, are you?
Thank you, Chairman. Paper is recognition of the fact that the authority has changed since this initial decision was taken by the fire authority. It's just to provide an update on the current public consultation that is now underway around the redesignation of the crewing establishment that's currently assigned to the rescue vehicle based at Huntingdon Fire Station from its current 24/7 5-watch system into the new operational risk and response team. Fundamentally, this is for us about making better use of the resources that we have available. Over the last 5 years, members may be aware, the service has invested significantly in our ability to deal with road traffic collisions. This has resulted in us putting better equipment on frontline fire engines, so all our fire engines now carry the latest core hole backrow cutting equipment, and more recently, as Councillor Smith will be aware, we've invested in 6 new rescue pumps, which are frontline fire engines based at our whole time stations, so Cambridge, Dogsthorpe, Huntingdon, together with our day crude stations at Wisbech, Sydney and Ely. These are frontline fire engines but carry additional rescue capability over and above that on frontline appliances. As a result of this investment, the need for the rescue vehicle to support road traffic collisions has understandably reduced over that period of time. And now the majority of the work that's undertaken by our 3 rescue vehicles, so Huntingdon's, Cambridge and Peterborough, is primarily for large collisions such as planes, trains, complex water rescues and large animal rescues. The need for this is infrequent, and therefore in February 2013 the authority approved plans to commence a public consultation on changes to the staffing assigned to the rescue vehicle based at Huntingdon. Under this proposal, we would look to take the 10 staff that currently are assigned to Huntingdon Fire Station, which means the vehicle at Huntingdon is available 24/7, take that crew and put it into the operational risk and response team. Well, that crew, which operates during the daytime, would mean that we were able to increase the number of whole-time staff available during the day, so we could continue to crew the rescue vehicle during the day, and with the remaining staff also do things to bolster on-course fire stations, for example, or deliver community safety risk reduction work in more rural communities. So rather than having a crew of 10 people assigned to a vehicle that its use is getting less and less, we would take the crewing away from that, continue to provide the vehicle when it was needed during peak call times, but also use the additional staff to deliver better services elsewhere across the county. The vehicle would remain available at night at Huntingdon and at weekends, but it wouldn't be primarily crewed. So we need to find additional alternative ways of crewing that vehicle during that period of time. The consultation was launched on the 27th of September and runs until Friday 29th of November. And access to that consultation is via our website, and a number of hard copies of the consultation is available a leaflet to every household. Because this change affects the entire county and Peterborough, because although the effect is Huntingdon's vehicle, the knock-on benefits will be available to the whole county. We felt that approach wasn't right, so we've gone for a consultation on the website, copies in the library, media releases, and there's a number of YouTube videos that we'll be releasing over the period of the 8 weeks to try and answer any questions that the public will have. We have a series of visits for staff and for communities in a similar way we did with Burwell and Swaffham, which we're arranging currently, and then the outcome of the consultation will be brought back to the authority for determination in February 2014. Just to outline the proposal, I'm happy to take any questions at this stage the members may have.
Thank you. Councillor Rivals.
Do you still have the ability to go and rescue large animals compared with the other vehicles that you've got?
Yes, we do.
Are you relying on somebody manning this one?
No, we have 2 other rescue vehicles which carries the same equipment, one at Cambridge and one at Peterborough, which has this similar kit on for those type of incidents. And under these proposals, this vehicle would still be available, just crewed in a different way, certainly during the day anyway.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks. Can I just ask, or is it advisable, basically, carry out the consultation by all means, but it's got, in 7.4, the outcome of the consultation will be brought back to the authority for determination in February 2014. It's not a big problem, but I don't really like sort of having an information item or item brought at a meeting where you've got to make a decision there and then. Or not that you've got to make a decision, that's not a problem. It's just, I think we should have more sort of time. Could that come back to a committee meeting in the middle? So there's time to discuss it as well before it comes to the full fire authority for determination. It's just a thought.
To members' views.
The general way these consultations go, I'd like to say you normally get a spurt of something at the start, but as our consultation showed, you normally don't. I rather suspect that most of our input here will be from staff.
If then we can discuss that and make sure
Yes,
that
but
all the views are being heard.
my point being that we can alert members much earlier than February to the general comments that are coming through. We don't have to wait to the end of the consultation because it's unlikely to change towards the end. So it's perfectly legitimate, possible for us to talk to members about this, and what the general thrust of the consultation is much before any decision might need to be made in February.
So, I think the other thing, and again, I think it comes back to the fact that there's been a fair change in members.
Exactly.
Yeah, this proposal has been discussed since around May 2010. There's been a huge amount of documented evidence that's come before members, and members have actually said yes, let's go out and talk to the community, because I think there was an acceptance that actually the fundamental point here is that during the day we have between 20 and 25 of our 38 appliances available, so we have a significant problem during the day. And looking at the way we crew our service with our whole-time staff, it would make a lot of sense for us to use them in different ways so we can provide much better resilience during the day when we get most of our fire calls. And that's why we've looked at the rescue vehicles. That members have been persuaded by that, and I mean I completely agree with Councillor Smith. I think it's really important that as we go through the consultation, we do keep you informed of what the community is actually telling us as part of it. And you know, if members feel that it's right to come back to one of the committees or both committees before we come to the fire authority, we can do that too. What we would like to do is to actually get this moved forward by around February time, because the next round of cuts will be coming up in around 2015, and at the moment we can't as officers justify maintaining 10 people crewing a vehicle that isn't used as much as it could be. So we would really like to get those people being used more effectively in areas where we know we can make a very big difference, to demonstrate the evidence that actually we do need these people, and not the other way, and not have to come to you with a recommendation that actually we don't, and they could perform part of the cuts that we make very early on.
Councillor Shelley.
I think this is the second instance of something that was referred to before. I don't think people are questioning the decision and the validity of the decision. What they're saying is that we would like earlier information. And so I think Councillor Smith's point is if we can have some information this side of Christmas as to what the generalities is, then come February we'll all be able to sit here and not be trying to read the papers in the meeting.
As with the Swaffham and Burwell, we will keep you updated as we go through.
So when might I expect something?
Well, we've literally only just kicked it off, so you won't get it very. Well, we can tell you tomorrow if you want to. No. But as soon as we've got enough information, we will.
End of the month.
What we'll probably do is give you a feel for what the general comments are coming back and the way this is going. That will feed into the YouTube, and we'll include you along the way. By the end of the month, without any, no problem.
Councillor Lessinger.
It's a point about this consultation, really, that the description that you gave is all a very web-based consultation, and I understand why you might be looking to go down that route, because it is a large number of people who will be influenced, and they're influenced in a kind of slightly subtle way, and it's a complicated matter that needs explaining, and therefore it is, I mean, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you should go and put a leaflet through every door and do that Peterborough, because it's unrealistic. But I do wonder whether you ought to be trying to find some other ways of contacting people other than just web-based, because it does mean that you're only contacting that group of the population who are IT literate and aware of what's going on in that space, and that is not the whole population. I certainly wonder whether it's worth going to the district council meeting and making a presentation, because it is one of their, I don't know what kind of subcommittees they have in the parish meetings, but it is Huntingdon that it will be most effective. And I do wonder whether you should be making a little bit more of an effort to go along and actually speak to some people and explain what's going on, and ideally in a public forum where you will also get some press coverage, because it's all very well putting out a press release, but because it's quite a difficult, complicated issue to explain to people, you may not get the coverage you want.
I think that's very valid, and we had some plans to run some kind of road shows for staff, etc. Like, it's a really good idea to expand that, perhaps to open it up more for the public in certain areas.
Actually, if you had a van in the car park in Huntingdon Centre, it might. I think some face-to-face contact with some actual members of the public would be
Cheers.
I can understand why members might think it's particularly relevant to Huntingdon because it's based in Huntingdon, but I think the nature of the vehicle and what it does, it's actually relevant to wider parts of the county. The appliance of Swaffham is particularly relevant to Swaffham because it's there one out in Farringdon, whereas this vehicle is something that would travel more widely across the county. So absolutely take the point about doing more face-to-face stuff, but we'll just have to do more of it wider.
Just to add to Susan, and I think we must keep in our minds, actually this is about the use of the staff, and that's why we think it's more of a service-wide thing, because the vehicle will still be there, the kit will still be there, we've still got the capability to use it. It will take us longer in the evenings, clearly, because we'll be doing it in different ways, so there's a downside, and we've got to recognise that. But for the number of incidents we go to, it's not a very big downside. But it's the use of the staff and making them effective and providing the best possible service, which is why we're trying to find ways. And I think the idea of district councils is a good one, and I think that's one that we can certainly follow up along the way. We want to get feedback from the public about what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Councillor Butcher.
Yeah, just one thing with the consultation. I know it's very important feedback from the public, but it's nice to see the feedback from the staff that's involved as well, because we're doing visits to the staff. The time doesn't allow it, but this is something that I would probably say that if the time allowed it, it would be good to go to scrutiny before it comes to the full meeting. But with February coming up, I don't know whether we would have time to do that.
Could do.
But it's no good bringing it to scrutiny until we've got the results of the consultation, so we know what's happening to other people.
Well, then you would have, wouldn't you?
We will have.
Yeah. So if that's
take it to
perhaps
scrutiny.
trying to then involve a complete membership, if it was come to scrutiny, then we go look at it. I don't know how others feel about that.
I agree.
Yeah. You're all happy about that then?
Yeah.
So, is anybody else wishing to speak? No? So, the recommendation is that we note the report and that it comes to scrutiny prior to coming back to full fire authority. Yeah? Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Good. Agenda item 11, service improvement at Burwell Station. Swaffham and
Everybody
Burwell.
said except for Bill.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously it's a very short report. We thought it was important to come back and inform you about the progress that we're making on the Burwell site. You will see that actually things are going quite well, and we are very much near the point where we can put the spade in the ground, if you like. We've got the transfer of land agreed with the County Council, and we're now ready to move ahead. The way things are going, anticipating the completion of works will be around August next year. You'll see from the appendices the layout of the building. It's a good sized site for us, certainly significantly bigger than the existing site. It will enable us to access in and out without too many difficulties. We will have our own training building there, which, as was mentioned earlier, is critical for the on-call service, because they don't get the experience doing the job as much as we'd like. So training to do the job is really important, and having access, immediate access, is really important. So, you know, this will be a very good facility for that part of the county when it's up and running, and I think it will be a good addition for both Burwell and Swaffham.
Thank you. Any comments, please? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Can I just sort of mention, bearing in mind the decision made earlier about Swaffham, basically, and it is an amalgamation, should we call it Swaffham and Burwell, or Burwell and Swaffham?
Vote.
As opposed to, sorry?
Have a vote as to whether we want Swaffham before Burwell.
Oh right, but you just include both the villages, is that?
I think, sorry, Chair, can I make some comments? I think, I mean, members, you're more than welcome to do either. I think the only comment I would make is we cite fire stations in towns, not for the town or the city or the village. They're there for geographical reasons because it's the best place to put them. So it's why we're not overly precious about calling it, because it isn't Burwell's, it's not Swaffham's, it's actually Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. But it happens to be cited there, but you know, we're happy to go whichever way the members would like to go.
Chief.
I think it might be prudent to engage with both parish councils on this particular issue.
You can do that.
There's another fine story.
Yeah, you can do that.
Councillor Goodwin.
Is it just a question? Is there any 26 obligation from a building like that that will benefit?
No.
Councillor Chapman.
Right, I'd like to confess that I stole my inspiration from my comments earlier from Councillor Smith, that it was entirely her idea. And I would like to second her proposal. I appreciate that operationally it may not matter where what the name of the fire station is, but clearly it's very important to offer the level of reassurance to residents that they still have that capacity, and it's an amalgamation, and it's actually an enhancement to their service from what was described earlier on. And I think it's important that the station is called the either the Swaffham or Burwell, or the Burwell and Swaffham. I've got no
I'm not precious either way.
prejudice, but I'd like to second what Councillor Smith said earlier on.
Councillor Smith.
I don't think,
Second.
Chairman, you can make a decision on this. You've really got to go out to consult with the local people, because this has not been debated, I assume, by the local people, parish councils, or the people.
Okay, I'd like to put the idea out there, and when the discussions are going on with the parish councils about the decision that has been made, if the idea is floated then, how's about that?
That's a better option, I think.
I'll second that.
There'll be an expectation if you're going to do that change, I think, for the locals to have an input. And so legally, we shouldn't be competing with something.
Councillor Shallam.
I'm just wondering what happens when Burwell's parish council says it's got to be Burwell and Swaffham.
Well, that's the next thing, isn't it?
Toss a coin.
Yeah.
A couple of other points. I'm slightly mystified by demo distorted data on the drawing. And I picked up earlier from the comments that there is some community space provisions, and I don't see that in the paper. And I think that's a significant factor.
Sorry. What I could, Chair, what I could do is actually circulate the floor plans.
No, I'm not. I just don't understand what that means.
Yeah, sorry, it's my oversight. I should have put those in, so I apologise for that. But what I will do is I'll circulate the floor plans, because there's a dedicated area within the building, so that community can access but not get into the operational areas. And we've actually got the right doors and the security access to allow that to happen. But I will circulate it. Apologies for that. For your information. That would be something to do with the drawing that was set up for us. But this demo distorted data, that is the demo distorted data. It's to ensure it doesn't have to reverse, so we don't end up.
Is it just for one appliance?
I'm really sorry, I need to pick up, I need to put an opposing view to Randy's on this awful good back. Burwell thing. And when you go and consult, I don't think you should push them necessarily to have it because actually it's going to be in Burwell. There's something to be said for having the name. I can see why at the moment, if it's going to reassure the parish council, that's great. But actually, in 10 years' time, just have it called Burwell, just make life easier for people. And that's the only
Question.
Can I just make one comment on that? Just, there is precedent for that. I'm aware of it in the county I live in. Letchworth Fire Station was closed and Baldock became Baldock and Letchworth. So there is a precedent for it. And I assume that was done in discussion. One thing we are doing as well is there's some memorabilia that's in Swaffham that will be transferred into the new fire station. So there is a link between the fire stations. So, you know, we're more than happy to have a discussion and not push it and just see what this local residents say.
Right, okay. Councillor Loynes.
Just a quick question. I see this new Burwell stroke Swaffham fire station is a single appliance station. What's going to happen to the appliance that's in Swaffham? Is it being redeployed somewhere else?
Obviously we have a replacement for our fleet and it will be absorbed within the fleet depending on its age, and then we will reduce the fleet by one. There was no, when we looked at the data and the evidence we have for the area, we couldn't justify having two appliances there.
No, but would it go to another station that needs another appliance?
Well, it depends on its age. I mean, I don't know the age of the vehicle, but if it's new enough, we'll move it to a station where they have an older appliance. If it's not, it might go into spare. At some point, it will be then exited from the fleet.
Thank you.
Councillor Lessing.
What happens when it exits from the fleet? What do you
There's not a great market for second-hand fire appliances. And unfortunately, yes, we often go late.
That's fine.
Councillor Goodwin.
You could give it to Northampton because they're free.
We give it?
Don't sell it.
You don't give it, you sell it.
Okay, so I think have we
Can I just ask how it's intended to minute that last one?
I was there when they got the freedom of
right. Folks, have we finished with this one?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to note the report, subject to consultation with the parish councils as to the way forward with naming the new station. Is that right?
Yeah.
Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Right, we now move on to the minutes of the previous sub-meetings. Item 12 is the overview and scrutiny minutes of the 4th of July. Councillor Butcher, do you have any comments?
I think the paper is pretty straightforward. The only comment I would like to make is on the review of Silverfleet and Paul Cars, because the previous committee had said that they would like further work to be undertaken. But when the committee went through all the report and the review they had done and came to the conclusion that the view was that there was little to be gained by revisiting the work. So I think the committee was happy with that. Everything else I believe is straightforward. I would like to remind members of the committee that the next meeting on the 17th is at Cambridge Fire Station, and we are going to be invited there in the morning to have a look around and to look at the lovely stuff.
Thank you. Item 13 is the minutes of the policy meetings on the 20th of June and the 19th of September. The 20th of June, Councillor Loynes. The 19th of September, Councillor Messenger. Any
Well,
comments?
I'm happy with the minutes from the June meeting.
Councillor Messenger.
I was happy with minutes when I read them, so I think that's fine. I wanted to draw the attention of the Fire Authority to the future agenda reference point. The committee agreed to send a note to the chairman of the Fire Authority expressing its report for a review of the committee structure, which I think is something that, if that happens, we haven't done anything about it yet, but it's just
That's correct. There has been some discussion regarding that, and the thought was that it would go back to policy, so we could bring it back to full authority before the next municipal year.
Yes.
Is that right?
But I think if any other members want to feed into that,
Yeah.
it would be extremely helpful.
Thank you. And item 14, the resources minutes of the 20th of June and the 19th of September. They are self-explanatory. The only difficulty I had with the 20th of June meeting was keeping it going for more than 5 minutes. Apart from that, okay. That, I think, concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you all for coming, and see you again soon.